Welcome to Reels on the Rocks, the show where your hosts Whiskey and Sweet Tea discuss film from the unpretentious perspective. Anime is back again with the whimsy and wonder of Whisper of the Heart. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and as always, please be advised that spoilers are ahead.
So T, I was at the gym this morning and the craziest thing happened. Can you guess what came on the speakers while I was doing my cardio?
Did it have something to do with West Virginia?
Mountain Mama. Yeah, the song that is used predominantly in this film we're going to talk about came on. So I think that the anime gods have blessed this episode. Welcome back, everybody, to Reels on the Rocks.
Welcome, everyone. We're back again. First off, I'd like to apologize for my voice. I'm a little sick right now, but hopefully I don't sound disgusting. But go ahead.
Yeah. So we're back. This year we're doing regular old anime. We had to just do kind of one episode last month because T was moving, but we're back on our bullshit this time. And we've have not figured out a theme. I was going to do Read or Die for my pick, but then I found out a week ago that, oh no, it's not available anywhere in the US, not on Crunchyroll, not anywhere. So I thought that would be a fun one to talk about, just this weird anime film I saw on Adult Swim when I was a teenager, and I do own the DVD somewhere, but I wasn't, how's T supposed to watch it? So switched off to a movie that I've been nagging T to check out for years. But before we talk about that, it sounds like T has some fun current events or something to talk about.
Well, I don't know if they're fun. Definitely some entertainment related ones. It's been a slow news cycle. Unfortunately, Cannes just started. And I mean literally just started. So there's nothing juicy yet. Like I tried to go and see what people were saying on Deadline, and they only had like one movie listed. And I'm assuming that's the only one that's been screened yet. So fortunately, not a lot coming out of Cannes yet, but people, with Cannes happening, there will be some more stuff coming out. There was another article, and I really wish I remembered what the director's name is. You might be able to help me with this. It's like a director, I forget what his name is. He's from like North Carolina. I'm trying to remember who it is, and it makes me upset that I didn't remember who it is. But he recently did an interview with either with Variety or with the Hollywood Reporter, talking about why people weren't going to the movies again. And he kind of echoed the sentiment of like what the studios were saying, and he was basically saying, oh, it's because they haven't been innovated enough, they haven't been renovated enough. And of course I'm like, dude, you're going to theaters in like rural North Carolina, okay, like
right,
chill. And he's I will say the one thing he is right about is he says that that like these cinema stuff, they put too much stock in how like LA theaters and everything work over there, which I actually agree is true. I do think that they try to use LA as like a test area for stuff, and then it doesn't pan out across the country, and everybody's like, why? I'm like, well, it's because it's LA. But it irritates me they can't find his name is. But he was saying basically what the studios were saying, that it was because he's gone to theaters and in his area, and he just like wasn't impressed with the experience, or it hasn't been updated, or maybe he can hear something from the theater next door, and he said that's why people aren't going to theaters. But what was interesting to me is when I was reading all the comments below the article where it was shared, everybody was saying no. It's like every once in a while somebody would say yes, but most people saying no, it's the cost, it's too expensive. And I do think that's interesting that people are still not catching on to the fact of how much cost weighs into what people do as an outing. Like that's still wild to me that especially with somebody like him who's going supposedly to a regular theater in North Carolina, which is very different than Hollywood and LA, still doesn't understand cost as a major factor.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing we talked about when this was a main topic on a previous episode. But anyone who says that the theaters aren't innovating, I just love to know what they think they should do, because they have bars in theaters now. They have, the extremely comfy reclining seats. They've got every kind of snack you could think of. They've got rewards programs. They've got like anything you could think of that they could use to incentivize people to go. They've already been doing for like years. So I don't know what these people think the theater industry needs to do, because it's crazy. And also it's interesting because cost is like different everywhere. I mentioned this before, but I don't live in LA anymore, and it's so much cheaper to go to the movies. Like even relatively, so I imagine like out in, rural North Carolina or whatever, it probably is expensive for the average person living out there, but the cost is also like way down. It's a whole thing. I hope that something happens, or like maybe people just get more into it, but yeah, no, it is a cost issue, and that is why people prefer to stream things, because it's like, okay, well, I can go now and see it in the theater, which I would argue is a great experience. But especially, like, let's say that this is a family, maybe they don't make a ton of money, but they've invested a lot in their entertainment setup at home, so they've got like a nice, streaming thing, maybe like a larger TV that didn't cost that much, maybe a previous model. If you wait until something is like rentable on Amazon or streaming on Netflix or Disney Plus or Hulu or whatever, it's either like completely free with your subscription, or it's like $3 compared to taking the whole family out. It's like $10 and I'm being generous with the price here. Let's just say like median price. Like it's not like $20 a person like in LA. It's like $10 a person.
Right.
Family of 4, that's $40 on tickets. That's not including a drink for everybody, probably a big popcorn to share. Like you're looking at like a movie outing being like $100 or more just to like take the family out, versus watching it at home and it being less than $10. So, it is a cost thing.
I did look it up, and I just want to give credit where credit's due. Danny McBride is who was commenting.
Yes. Ooh.
He was one that said this. And this is literally what he said. This is in an interview with the Hollywood Reporter. And he says, and so he was asked, living outside the LA, New York bubble, what do you think Hollywood is getting wrong about the movies it chooses to make? And this is his response. He said, it's about reestablishing, he said, it's in some regard, it's not about finding what the audience wants to see. It's about reestablishing why it's important to go to the movies in the first place. In LA or New York, you still have these badass movie theaters that have state-of-the-art sound and screens. I'll buy a ticket to a theater around here, and it feels like you're in a halfway house. There'll be movies where I'll go in, see what's on, and walk right out, see what screen it's on, and walk right out because I know that speaker hums or there's a smell in there. In these suburban towns, they built all these 16-screen megaplexes in the late 90s, and now those places feel like relics of a bygone era. There's 6 movies playing in there. It feels like you're in the fall of Rome. Even if what Hollywood is making is good, it's hard to convince people not to watch it from the comfort of their home and their massive TV set when they might go and spend all of this money for 30 minutes of commercials and the projectionist to forget to turn the lights off. So,
yeah, I kind of agree that, like, I agree to an extent.
Yeah.
One, my heart goes out to the small movie theaters who can't fix everything.
Right.
But it is an issue. Fun fact, there was a smaller movie theater. Unfortunately, it sounds like it's going out of business. But I went to it for Beetlejuice last year. And it was like a small, family run kind of thing. Like it was some movie fan bought the place. He was probably younger. Again, he probably was my age. But it was one of those things where, like, I got the tickets, and it was one dude running the entire theater. I don't know if the projectors were on a timer or if there was someone up there that I didn't know about. But, like, as far as buying the tickets and getting the snacks, it was one, like, 19-year-old guy doing everything.
Yeah.
And they had an open mic night. So when we went into the cinema, like the actual, auditorium, there was like musical instruments, like a drum set and stuff left over from, the open mic night, because I guess that just happened to be the theater that they would hold it in. Because there was like, I think there might have been 3, there was like 3 or 4 screens in this place. So there's that, and it was around Halloween, so they were building like a big chunk of the lobby was inaccessible because it was a haunted house for Halloween. Like they were gonna have like kids trick or treat in there and stuff, which is cute. It's like I like that, but also it makes the place feel dumpy, you know?
Yeah.
So I kind of get what he means, because that's the other thing that was sad about this place was it was state of the art. The guy who bought it, it was a small movie theater, but he like redid all of the seats. The sound system was awesome. The screens were like, it was, as far as like a viewing experience, it was great. 2 thumbs up. It was just some very like hokey small town stuff that made it feel kind of unprofessional.
Right.
Then, on the flip side of what he said about the big megaplexes dropping the ball, I have literally had what he was talking about where they don't turn off the lights because, like, no one is paying attention to who's in the theater.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, it sucks because I tend to go to matinee shows a lot, but that's where, again, it's sad. Like, unless you are actually going to opening weekend of a film, it's depressing a lot of the time. Like there's just no one cares. Like, and that too, like I have had, I think it was, what was I seeing? It was something earlier this year. It was like in January or something, a movie I went to see. It might have been The Brutalist or something. I don't know. It might have been something that was from last year that I saw. I went in during a matinee. There were 2 girls running the whole theater, and this was a big theater. This was like a 13-screen megaplex, right? And again,
yeah.
I'm assuming their projectors were on a timer, but you know, this was like, I don't know. It wasn't, you know, it didn't turn me off necessarily, and thankfully for that experience, I don't think there was any technical issues. But I do. It's hard to really have a fix for that because. In the small theater thing, it's because they're struggling, and in the big theater thing, it's because there's no reason to have all hands on deck when it's like a matinee showing at like 12 o'clock or something.
Right. The thing I disagree with him the most is 30 minutes of commercials. I'm like, dude, don't you know the rule? Once the timer they list is when the previews start. Everybody knows that. Everybody also
it's
knows
still
that
annoying.
you go in 15 minutes later. You have like, oh, I will get there for a movie that I'm seeing like at 1, and I'm walking. And if if I'm like later saying I'll come in at 1, but I'm fine because I know I still have like 20 minutes of previews. It's like I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought everybody knew that.
Well, my thing, because I used to be the kid that wanted to get there before the previews started. I hate them now. It sucks so much because it's forever. It goes on. It used to be like and that too.
2 or 3 or something, and now it's like 7.
And it sucks. And they need to go back to 2 or 3 because it's ridiculous. It's like you're going to see a trailer for every potential thing coming out.
Well, every potential thing that matches with the audience that they think would see the movie you're currently seeing.
Oh my god, it is so funny seeing a Jordan Peele movie because you get all these like black you'll get like Friday 3 and like Medea's Home Improvement Adventure, and it's like, what is this?
What is this? No,
like, I'm seeing a horror movie. What's going on?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing. Like in this day and age, why are you seeing 30 minutes of commercials? Most of us have seen the trailers we want to see already. So like, it makes less sense now to have more trailers because everyone has probably seen all of the trailers that they're going to see before their movie. Like back in the day, it would have made more sense to do that because this is a fun anecdote. I always love saying this because it really puts into perspective just how big trailers used to be. So Batman from 1989, it was the highest grossing film of that year, and it was incredibly anticipated because there hadn't been a Batman movie since the 60s. And the 60s Batman, although it was good, it was more of like a silly comedy kind of thing. No one had done like the edgy Batman before.
Yeah.
So when it's like, okay, they got Tim Burton. Well, Tim Burton wasn't even a household name at that point, but they got a guy and he's doing like the dark Batman. People found out what movies were playing the trailer for Batman and they would buy a ticket just to see the trailer and then leave. Like, that is how big of a deal trailers used to be before the internet.
Yeah.
Now, I see trailers for everything the day it comes out, because it, you know, when Dune Messiah is announced, I will see the trailer the day it is announced. You know, there's no reason for it anymore. Like, I think that's something that would probably make people happier. I'm sure the people who are lollygaggers who can't arrive on time are probably happy that there's so much time before the movie. But for people like me who used to like trailers, it's like, I hate it. And I also, I think I'm extra careful because I will arrive late now, but I don't arrive late enough. You know what I mean? And also it's kind of annoying because now there's also assigned seating, which I do think is an improvement, but now you got to find if you want to skip the trailers, you got to find your assigned seat in the dark, and there's probably people sitting in there, so now you got to like walk past a bunch of, like, I don't know, it's a whole thing.
Well, there's more trailers now because since movies aren't as lucrative as they used to be, it's kind of like in their mind getting more bang for their buck, because the studios who put out the theaters decide what trailers go on the end of it, so it's almost like free advertising for them. And so that's why there should be more in there for that reason. But I will say I still do fundamentally disagree with his opinion on this, because I can only speak for myself. The fact that we just talked about a 20-year-old movie was #1 at the box office, keeping new movies down, I kind of think goes against this. And then 2, the other thing is, I know I personally have I've driven across town to go to the bad theater that's kind of like what he's describing, simply because they were re-releasing like The Silence of the Lambs or something, and it was the only place I could see it. So my thing is very much, you know, if you put it out, they will come. I still think they're just not putting it out.
I think, and you hit on something, because that was something I'm always complimenting back from when I lived in LA. I think Quentin Tarantino managed his theaters super well. Mm-hmm. He always had like the best ideas for, like, you know, what movie, because he'd never put out new movies. It was always like, John Carpenter's The Thing, or, you know, Carrie, or Jaws, or, you know, he was so good at like coming up with a schedule for the year. Every time I drove past his theater on my way to work, I was just like, oh man, I want to go there, but I can't because I'm working. And there would always be a line out the door. So I think, like, if you were a small theater, like, I'm really hoping the one that I was talking about doesn't close down here. It sounds like they're probably likely going to. But like, if you were a small theater manager, coming up with like an interesting release and not just doing new movies, I think would get people into it. Jaws, speaking of which, it's the 50th anniversary. Because the internet knows I like Jaws, I'm getting all these targeted advertisements and stuff. Like, what is it? Jack Daniels released a bottle for their whiskey that's shaped like a shark.
You need to pick that up.
Seriously, you know, because I'm whiskey. But but that's what I'm talking about. Like, do something for Jaws, you know, the same way, like, there's always those, screenings in pools or lakes or whatever. Like, do something for that, or just come up with other things. And then as far as, like, the big theaters, I don't have as much of a fix. I just think you're probably not going to get the best experience unless you go during prime time hours, like on weekends at night, or like opening weekend. But it is a thing. Like, I can criticize, and I'm kind of lightly criticizing, because nothing I'm talking about really is ruining my experience. My worst experience at movies is other people. It's not the theater's fault. So it's like a tough thing. At least there is that silver lining that we keep seeing, that people are going to the movies. There's like, I was just talking about how Sinners did super well, and that's like an original idea. So people, if the movie is right, if it's something that people genuinely want to see, they will go to see it, just like you said. And that's the other thing that people don't think about, is more movies are being produced now than ever before. And that's been the case for the last 2 decades. Like every year, like since movies have become more accessible to make, there's more stuff coming out. When there's more stuff coming out, people are not going to go see everything. You and I are on the weirdo side of things,
right?
Because we, seek stuff out. Your average person might see like 3 movies a year, so or maybe more, but like just the stuff that's going to be
and
popular.
Also I was talking to some of my older relatives, and they said, a while ago, like they used to go to the movie like once a week and see something. And that's just changed. And I can, and I wonder if it's, and I do think I just want to say COVID was a big disruptor in just the schedule of people's lives. And I do think, besides the fact that streaming became accessible, I do think though that movies became part of people's lives as like a scheduled thing to do. Oh, it's Wednesday. We go to the movies. Maybe not necessarily because they wanted to go. And so it's weird. It's like, they always say, like, even like during a sale, you never want to give your buyers a chance to think. And I do think that period gave people time to think about how they spend their time. And it's not saying that movies are not a good investment of their time, but, maybe it's just not for everybody.
I think that's the case. There's new forms of entertainment that have surpassed film. Video games are the big thing right now. That's what everyone's doing with their free time. And the other thing to think about is, I don't think this applies to everybody. It's certainly, I think COVID changed me in some ways that I think about now, and I'm just like, whoa, that's weird. I never used to do that. But I think there's like a level of agoraphobia that's kind of happened with people, even subconsciously. Like people don't go out anymore. And that's like a whole other thing. The loss of the third place is something that's been talked about a lot. Usually it's more like, social places for people to go. And that did used to be movie theaters. I think that is something that was a third place for a lot of people. It certainly was for me when I was a teenager, and I would go. Fun thing, like I had to beg my parents because it was an R-rated film and I was in 8th grade, but when the remake of The Omen came out, I was like, ooh, can I please see it on 666 when it comes out? Like, that's so cool. And, I went that night and all of my friends from school were there. Yeah. At least the ones that liked horror movies, but it was just crazy. Like, even people like I didn't necessarily like hang out with. It was just like, whoa, you're here too. You don't get that anymore. At least I don't think you do. Like everyone sees the big new movies when they come out, the Marvel movies and stuff, but I don't think like people necessarily rendezvous at the movie theater anymore. And that too, like I think young people would rather watch it on their phone and just watch it over and over and over again. But that is another thing with COVID. I think there's like this weird level, and I think it hit younger people more than older people. But I do have to admit, there's like behaviors I have that I didn't have 10 years ago that I will often think about. And it hasn't really affected me like going out, but it makes me think, like if it has changed me, what did it do to other people? Because like that is a thing I've noticed is a lot of people. You see this in the restaurant industry. People order delivery far more than going out to eat. And it's gotten to a point where it's stupid now because it's more expensive to order delivery than going. Yeah, so it's like it doesn't even make sense to do it anymore because you're spending essentially double what you would going to the restaurant and probably having a better time because then you're not watching a video while you're eating. Maybe you go with someone else, or not, and you just, people watch or so. I don't know. It's one of my favorite phrases is everything has to do with everything, and I think that kind of applies with this. It's not just one thing that you can like pull apart and be like, oh, this is the reason this isn't working. It's just like all encompassing. Right.
No, I agree. That being said, we have a movie to discuss.
The movie. So, first off, before we get into the whimsy, into the fantasy, and the young love, what are you drinking, T?
Okay, so I am having, because she specifically said that they were having iced tea, which is wild. I am having an iced peach tea blended with a little bit of my peach whiskey from Savannah.
Ooh, very nice. I always try to, because I never drink sake unless it's anime. So I might switch it up next episode. Depends on what we end up watching. But I did sake since it's become sort of a yearly tradition. So I'm doing Sakemoto. It's got a dragon on the bottle. Come on, how do you not?
How do you pass up a dragon?
It's a Junmai sake. I'm pretty sure that's the same kind I always get. It's, basically clear. It almost looks like bottled water. But it looks refreshing, and it's got a dragon on the bottle. So there's very little that can go wrong with that. So cheers, tea.
Cheers. Clink.
Sake is always so interesting. There's really nothing like it.
I used to not like sake, and then somebody told me, that's because you're having the bad kind of sake. You need to get, the nicer kind.
Well, this stuff is you chill it, unless I'm misunderstanding and someone who's an expert in Japanese culture is going to scream at me in the comments on YouTube Music or something. But, it does have, a vinegar taste to it, but I don't know. It's very refreshing. It's one of the few alcohols that tastes almost healthy. It doesn't feel disgusting when it's not the same as just absolutely housing 5 shots of whiskey or drinking a case of beer or something. There's almost a refreshing quality to it. I know it's a very odd flavor. So I get why people aren't into it, but I don't know, man. Maybe get better sake. Get one with a dragon on the bottle.
Go for the dragon. Reach for the dragon. Taste the dragon.
So I've got an interesting history with this. I'm going to, rattle off the figures. As for most animes, I am getting just mixed signals from different sources. So Whisper of the Heart. It came out December 13th, 1996 in the States. In Japan, it came out the year before, but I didn't get a date because IMDb just doesn't care, apparently. And in Japanese, the title is Mimi wo Sumaseba. Mimi wo Sumaseba. I hope I'm saying that right.
Is it a direct translation, or was it renamed in the States?
I'm guessing it's a direct translation. It said original title in parentheses, so I guess, again, maybe someone who speaks Japanese in the comments, after they say that my pronunciation is horrible, they'll explain what it is. So one of the two things, this is pretty much where there's a disconnect, and this happens every time I cover an anime. I don't know what is up with IMDb, but it's weird. If Wikipedia can get it more accurate, I don't know why they can't. I don't know what the budget is because IMDb didn't have it, but on IMDb it said that it grossed 4.5 million globally. But then on Wikipedia it says, first off, I got the extra hint, and probably Wikipedia is better because a bunch of weebs can log on and edit, and you know what I mean. So frankly, it might be the better source. But anyway, it was the highest-grossing domestic film in Japan in 1995. So this was the movie of 1995 in Japan. It was the highest-grossing, and according to Wikipedia, globally, it grossed 34.9 million. So I don't know what to tell you. Someone doesn't know what they're talking about. But everything else, at least, was easy to find. This is going to be kind of a review where we actually talk about the content of the movie more than any fun facts, mostly because I couldn't find any, crazy research or anything like that, and it's an older movie.
Right.
So it's one of those. So director, despite this being a Ghibli film, it was not directed by Hayao Miyazaki. It was directed by Yoshifumi Kondo, but, and this is interesting, it was written by Hayao Miyazaki and Aoi Hiragi, I believe. For the characters, I just listed the main cast because there's a whole bunch of random high school or middle school kids that don't matter, and same thing. As far as Shizuku's family, I don't think we need to talk, like, we'll talk about her. They don't need to be named. Like, we can say Shizuku's dad.
The mother was voiced by Jean Smart. How dare you?
Okay, fine. The mother was voiced by Jean Smart.
Of Designing Women fame, and is currently doing very well with her show on HBO, Hacks.
Hey, I know that show. Good for her. Well, you can catch, like, if I neglected to mention any of the other main cast, but Shizuku's mother is that. Okay. But Shizuku, Japanese voice actress is Yoko Hana, and in the English dub, it's Brittany Snow. Seiji is Amisawa Issei. Oh, wait, no. Sorry. Seiji Amisawa is Issei Takahashi. Now my handwriting's bad. And in English, his dub actor was David Gallagher. And Shiro Nishi was voiced by Keiju Kobayashi. And Harold Gold in English. The Baron in Japanese was Shigeru Suyuguchi.
Okay.
Tough one to pronounce. Suyuguchi. And Carrie Ells in English, which perfect casting for the dub, by the way. If anyone is a fan of The Princess Bride, come on, give me a break. Yuko, Shizuku's friend, was voiced by Maiko Kayama, and in English it was Ashley Tisdale. Crazy.
Wow.
Right? Sugimura was voiced by Yoshimi Nakajima in Japanese, and in English it was Martin Spangers. I hadn't heard of him before. The interesting thing about the two of them, and kind of a lot, like when you go to IMDb, even because they have pictures of like the big Japanese actors,
yeah,
but a lot of them were blank, and I was like, that's so weird. But then I realized, like, oh, a lot of these are child actors. So I guess a lot of, and I watched the dub, I'm going to say, at least with Ghibli films. I don't know what any of you weebs listening are going to think, but I think Ghibli films are usually pretty safe with the dub. They always get just an A-list cast. It's always done really well. So I haven't, I didn't hear the Japanese voice acting, but I'm guessing it's like a lot of, voice actors, little kids who they do it, and then their career just doesn't take off, and so they don't even have a profile on IMDb. Also could be because IMDb apparently doesn't care about old anime films. The other note, I just wanted to, because I liked the music in this quite a bit. It's very diverse. There's some very interesting moments where it's almost like synthesizer, and then there's like some kind of weird alternative stuff, and then for the more fantastical scenes, it's almost like a full-blown orchestra. Like, it feels almost like a Disney movie score. So I just thought the composer was worth shouting out. It's Yuji Nomi. So those are like the main things. But before I ask what T thought, I'm going to explain how I even heard of this movie, because I feel like this is kind of a lesser-known Ghibli film, mainly because Hayao Miyazaki didn't direct it. I'm sure there's people who are going to disagree with that, but I certainly did not grow up with this film. I did not know about it until like late middle school. And what happened, there was a time, any anime fans might remember this, because I'm sure that they probably remember this coming out. So there was like a time when Disney was like the one that was putting out all of these Ghibli films, and they got rights to a bunch of like kind of a backlog of older films or like more obscure films. This was stuff like Porco Rosso, but there was one that we got in my household called The Cat Returns, and my sister really liked it. So the internet existed back then, quite not exactly the way it was now, but my sister did a little bit of research and found out, the Baron from The Cat Returns is actually a reference to an earlier Ghibli film called Whisper of the Heart. So we like found that out. This was before streaming. So after that, we were like, oh, that's cool. Let's see this movie that this Baron character is from. Knew nothing about the film. And we researched where we could find it. It was literally like on HBO. And this was back, again, you could not stream. Anyone who listens to the show, I don't know what our age demographic is. I feel like it's older, but if you're young, you had to like tape the movie at a specific point. First off, you had
Yes.
to pay for it. So you had to pay for it like you were renting it, but then you also had to change the channel to the thing, and I don't think that we had a DVR at the time. So this was literally like we had to like tape it and then watch it later, or like watch it when it was on and then like something like that. But yeah, it was old school. And so me and my sister watched this, and we enjoyed ourselves quite a bit, but we were kind of laughing a lot because some of the stuff we found hokey.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in a bad way. I'm going to get into
Are you
that because
saying you
I
found it corny?
a little bit. But it's okay because they're not a writer. No, they're a writer. No, but it was it's interesting because we like laughed at sort of the sillier aspects of it, and we also, I remember for most of the movie, we were just like, where is the Baron? Where is this cat that we were, because it takes forever for him to show up if you see the movie for that. But it was one that I remember fondly. Like, it was like, wow, that was a weird movie, but I liked it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, we noticed even at that young age, like, oh, that's weird. Miyazaki didn't direct it, but it's a Ghibli film. And fun fact, I told T this ages ago when I've been trying to recommend this movie, but fun whiskey lore fact, this was the first time I had ever heard the song Country Roads.
Really?
So that's a funny little thing. Like, Whiskey heard this famous country song that he would go on later to sing at like Boy Scout camp and stuff, and on anime. So that's funny. So now with all of that background of how I discovered this movie and how it has been in my head and everything, and I think I might have rewatched it 1 or 2 times in the past. But what did you think about it, T?
So I adored this. Oh my God, it was so good. And I'm going to tell you this, and let me finish what I'm saying because it sounds bad at first. I was like falling asleep in this movie, not because it was boring, but because it was like so warm and comforting, like a hug. Like, I'm not even kidding. It was that, like, this is the thing about like films that are put out, not even just the ones that Miyazaki has directed by his studio or whatever, is they transcend being just a story or a film. They become like a whole vibe, a whole thing you can live inside of. And and it was just, it was beautiful. It was warm. It was comfortable. I loved it. I really did love it. And I also did want to say, I don't know if you probably mentioned this, but Shiro Nishi was in the English version was voiced by Harold Gould, who is of Golden Girls fame. He played Miles Weber for many years on the Golden Girls, so I had to point that out. But but as you said though, it was a beautiful film. It was so warm. It was so friendly. It's just the vibe of this movie is so good. But that's to be expected with all of Miyazaki films. You know, that's kind of the one thing, not the one thing. That's one of the many things he excels at, and I think that's what has always made his movies feel just timeless. Because this is from actually this movie's 30th anniversary is this year, I think, either 30th or 29th, at least in the US release, is this year, and it still feels fresh. And that's only something I think that Miyazaki could accomplish.
Yes. Although, important to note, although he co-wrote this is technically not his film. And that was something I thought was really interesting, because I just assumed that it was like his studio and he always was the one putting stuff out. And it wasn't until he retired that kind of changed up later on in the history, like around 2014 or something.
But I thought this was just something. This isn't a Studio Ghibli film?
It is, but again, the director is Yoshifumi Kondo.
Okay.
So technically, he did co-write it. So he wrote it with Aoi Hiragi.
Okay.
But he did not direct this. So it is a Ghibli film, but Hayao Miyazaki did not direct it. And that's something I thought was interesting when I was a kid. The other thing I think is notable about this, Studio Ghibli, so he's a huge environmentalist. Fun fact, I'm sure if anyone, because we haven't talked about AI on the show, I think mainly because we want to keep this as a safe space where we're not complaining about it constantly. But there was a recent thing where, so I forget which AI it was. It was some generative AI. I want to say it was the big one. What am I even thinking of? Chat GPT or something. Some generative AI was making Ghibli images, which they had to immediately take down because it was like, you know, copyright infringement, just like everything else it makes. But Miyazaki was asked like what he thought of generative AI, and he hates it.
Oh yeah, I can see why.
He said it's like the death of creativity. He said something very good that I can't remember exactly, but like it kind of worth bringing up in this. But one thing I thought was really interesting about this, usually when you think of Miyazaki movies, he's a big environmentalist, and he usually sets his films in the country. This takes place in Tokyo, West Tokyo, and there's even kind of a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek jab at that with the lyrics that Shizuku is writing, you know, concrete road. So I think that's kind of an interesting departure from the usual Ghibli film that makes this feel really unique, is that it takes place in the city. And I think that there's a thematic connection to that I'll get into. But also the other thing.
Well, I was going to say the director of this movie, Yoshifumi Kondo, he directed this movie, but he was also the animation director for Kiki's Delivery Service and Princess Mononoke. Sadly, though, he passed away 3 years after this movie came out of an aneurysm.
My goodness.
He was only 47. But he worked on some excellent work, so...
Yeah, no, well, and it kind of shows, because while I was watching this, I actually thought of Kiki's Delivery Service a little bit. There was something about it that maybe it was Shizuku's like character design or something kind of reminded me of it, in more of just it's a Ghibli film kind of thing. But it actually, like, it even touches on some stuff from Kiki. That might actually be kind of a good segue, because, like, we did a review of Kiki's Delivery Service, and I think we both kind of came to the conclusion that film was about burnout.
Yeah.
Creative burnout, you know, and we're not the ones who originated that theory. It's been talked about. I think a lot of people just kind of take it for granted that that's what that movie is about. Mm-hmm. But this film is about, like, inspiration. It's also about creativity, but it is about sort of having that creative spark to like go after your dreams. So it takes place in Tokyo, which is, you know, a concrete jungle. It's this place that's like anti-fantasy. And there's almost there's like a Cinderella element to her life. Sort of. Like, she's not, like, abused or anything like that. She's not constantly doing chores, but there is sort of she doesn't have a lot of...
Her life is very mundane.
Whimsy. Yeah. Yes. She does a lot of chores. Her family... She has no privacy. Her older sister sleeps in a bunk bed. And her older sister's, like, an adult, but she's, like, been saving money and also, you know, picking up chores and stuff around the house to help her parents out. Her mom is going back to school, so that's kind of a funny thing where they're both leaving for school in the morning. So she just doesn't have a lot of whimsy or anything really exciting going on in her life. So I feel like there is sort of a Cinderella element in that sense. So the thing I remember thinking was really hokey as a kid was how perfectly everything turns out. I'm curious what you thought whenever something like, for instance, I think the big thing that I remember my sister and I kind of laughing about when we first saw this film. First off, so the spark that kind of kicks the story into gear. So she's an avid reader, and she is noticing that this boy's name is in every book that she checks out. You know,
which, by the way, that is an adorable meet cute. I love that idea.
Seiji Hamasawa, who is this guy? So we'll get into that later. But so she already has this like crush. She's romanticizing who this guy must be. Like, oh, he has great taste. He's reading. But then, so later on, the singer of Concrete Road, because she's writing the lyrics because she is a writer. Her best friend, I'm assuming they're best friends because she's like the one friend she's always with, has a crush on a boy that they're always talking to. And later in the film, there's a bit where, you know, he's pissed off her friend because he was saying like, oh, hey, my friend is your secret admirer, the guy who's sending you all the notes. You should go out with him. He's a really good guy. And she gets mad because she has a crush on him, and it's a whole thing. It's very middle school. Like, that was the other thing I think me and my sister just laughed about in general, was just how silly all of this was. And,
I love
you know,
how mature you guys were as kids.
Right? I mean, it's ironic looking back at it, because we both were, like, in middle school when we saw this movie, so we were probably preoccupied with stupid, petty crap as well. But, the bit where it's like, and I kind of saw it coming. I don't know if I saw it coming as a kid, but if this had been the first time I'd seen this movie, I would have seen it coming. The bit where she's like saying, oh, my friend Yuko likes you, and he's like, oh, but you're the one that I'm in love with. That just seemed so straight out of like a soap opera. Like, it's so perfect. Just the silly, melodramatic nature of it. Like, I remember that just made my sister and I crack up. Just like, oh, of course he's the one that's in love with you this whole time. The thing watching it this time that kind of, because I liked this movie again, me and my sister liked this movie when we saw it, but my feeling going in and seeing this, and also seeing like the guy who's like kind of teasing her playfully, and who she hates but also doesn't hate because he's kind of low-key handsome, and she likes him a little bit, even though he keeps, you know, teasing her, turns out to be Seiji Amasawa. Like, just those perfect coincidences were so silly to me as a kid that it made me like, oh, wow, this is, like, I feel like I even thought it was kind of quote-unquote bad writing at the time. Now, revisiting it, I like it because it's unbelievable, and she constantly says that too. It's like, I'm living a fairy tale.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. Like, yes, it is silly, and it's of course like very like cliche and convenient that all of the things you would think would happen in like in a romantic novel keep happening to her. But I think that's kind of the point. It's almost like she's sort of having this fantasy life that she's sort of wandering into periodically. She's got her home life and her schooling that she's struggling with and that she's uninspired by, but she is being kind of blessed with all of these really fun opportunities. You know, it turns out she actually is the sort of person that a boy at school would fall in love with. And not only that, but two boys. Because that's the funny thing too. This is like the end of the movie, but it is kind of funny to find out like Seiji Amasawa, not only is it the guy she thinks it is, but he was targeting her. Like, he had a crush on her first, and he was like, I'm just going to read every book in the library, and I'm going to make sure that my name gets seen by you, and so that you fall in love with me too.
That makes total sense, because everybody knows that teen boys tease their crushes to release sexual tension.
Yes, and that was something my sister and I immediately, like, I know that we must have, it's like, first off, I bet it's him, and secondly, like, that guy likes you, you silly girl. Like, he's not actually bullying you, he likes you. That is what he's doing. He's flirting with you. Well, and that too, like, I remember as a kid thinking he was kind of funny, and I thought he was funny now. I was like, oh wow, this guy's charming. Like, he's actually kind of a badass, like the way he just always is in the right place at the right time, and he always
he just rolls in with his perfectly timed bicycle.
Right? No, his bicycle, and he's always like got something funny to say, and just,
I love though, and I could totally relate to oh my god, hang on, let me scroll really quick. What's her name? Shizuki. I'm so sorry. I spelled it for me, but I related to Shizuki so hard when she finally meets like Seiji's like life, and like we talk about badass. Like his dream / hobby is like just carving violins from scratch. I'm like, if you ever want to feel unaccomplished in your life, run into that guy. That's like what he does on the side. I was like, dang, girl.
Yeah, it's So when she discovers, because I'd say the main players, obviously it's our young lovers. You got Shizuku and Seiji, but Shiro is who, Harold Gold, as you mentioned, voiced. He's kind of the other main character.
Yeah.
But finding that antique shop was like one of the most exciting things about the film when I first watched it. And I kind of forgot how she found it, because it's been a while since I've seen this movie. So I knew that she ends up in an antique shop, but I forgot about Moon, or Muta, the cat. I forgot about all of that. So that it is kind of there's something funny about her just like going off and following a cat around when she had to deliver her dad's lunch to him at the library, but it is very whimsical. It's like such a nice, there's like an adventurous aspect to this movie that, again, setting it in Tokyo is kind of sets it apart, but it also lays a groundwork for making the mundane adventurous. Because
right.
You don't really stumble upon cool little shops in the city. And
well, it kind of gave me a little bit of Totoro vibes, because it's kind of the same thing. It was like they found magic in the whimsical forest. I mean, they had like this cute little cabin, but
you helped me remember what's spaced out. So way back in the cringy times of this podcast, I think it was literally our first anime episode.
That was the
Akira, and
that was the first time
Totoro.
I was moving.
Yes. We both. Well, no. I guess I had already moved the first time before we started the show. Anywho, so one thing that we both discovered, researching for those episodes, was that the early 90s and late 80s, like, there was no anime. I talk about like the dark times where if you were watching something on HBO, you had to like, tape it or whatever. But those two movies were very important in that they came to the States. Like, they actually got theatrically played over here when that was not a thing for anime. And My Neighbor Totoro was like early 90s. I think actually it's from the late 80s. It came out in like 89, but I think it came here in like 90, 91, 92, something like that. And same deal with Kira, I think was 87, and it came here in like 89 or 88. But it's interesting because this one got theatrical play as well. But like that film, opposite, it takes place in the country. I agree with you that this has like some connections to it, but it's almost like the opposite setting. Like that one, it's these city girls that are moving to the country to be closer to their mother who's in a hospital, and a lot of the things that they just are experiencing out in the country are very new to them.
Yeah.
And there is also sort of an excitement in the mundanity. Like, I remember the very beginning of My Neighbor Totoro is them cleaning the house, and you've got the dust bunnies, the little black poof balls with eyes.
Right.
So there's like an adventure in cleaning the house. Ooh, I hear your house is haunted, and it's all creaky, and there's like some it's interesting because there is like a connecting DNA to both films, but they're like almost kind of polar opposites in the sense that they have different settings. But it's the thing I was kind of touching on with the whole finding the antique shop. A lot of things that happen in this film, just like My Neighbor Totoro, like if you were explaining it to someone, there are the fantastical things. Like My Neighbor Totoro, they find a Totoro, which is essentially like a troll, Japanese version of a troll, and he lives in a tree, and he can fly, and he can do all, like, there's all of that. There's the cat bus. But again, it's just like these very mundane things. Like the climax of My Neighbor Totoro is her sister being lost.
Yeah.
The same way with this film, if you were to explain like, oh, and then this girl follows a cat and then she finds an antique shop, I'm sure someone would look at you and be like, well, what's exciting about that? There's that excitement of the mundane just from having the very simple adventures in this film that I think is very cozy, like you were saying.
Yeah, exactly. It's finding the magic in everyday life.
Exactly. And the romance and the whimsy and the cuteness and stuff comes from those little connections and those little coincidences.
Interactions?
Those little coincidences.
Okay, yeah,
You know,
coincidences,
because
yeah.
it's those things that I thought were very corny when I was a kid. That's why it works, and that's why it's actually not bad writing, is because it is unbelievable that she would actually meet Keiji Yamasawa. I think when I was a kid, I was actually even watching it this time. Like I knew who he was, but I was thinking, oh, I bet he's like an older kid and he's like a freshman in high school, and it's like he's a year ahead of her. Because I haven't seen this film in a long time, and in enough time that I knew he is our love interest and she finds him. But I thought, oh, that's why. It's because these were all the books he was reading the year before he went to high school. And that is something you could also see possibly happening, which would also be kind of romantic. Like what, not necessarily in the sense that she ends up dating the person, but like what if Seiji Yamasawa was an adult? Like what if it was like a 30-year-old guy? It's like, oh my God, you found these books I read. Like there's almost kind of a romanticism in that too, like finding sort of a, you know, soulmate platonically, not necessarily romantically, but just someone who you are on the same wavelength with your reading material.
Right.
I don't know. There's again, it's these little things, like even that, it's the sort of thing you'd explain to someone and they'd look at you and be like, well, what's exciting about that? Like, I'm sure he's just a boy at your school. Why is that exciting? So that's something that I think is why that sort of works.
And speaking of the coincidences and what you had previously described as corny, the ending to me was very interesting because
yes,
to me, it's kind of left up to interpretation as to whether or not it's a dream, because it's so, at least this is my opinion,
so perfect.
It's so perfect, and it literally goes from the sleep to him showing up super early randomly for some reason, and it's just interesting because it's like so much stuff happens so quickly right there. You know, he decides he has more work to do, so he is going to go to high school, which I did like that is said, whether or not it's a dream or not, is said after she said she was going to go to school. I thought that was actually a very modern thing for the 90s to have her make that decision first, and then their love interest character decide later. Because I've seen instances where it's like they decided after they had that, and I'm like, is that really what you want? So there was that. There was the whole cliffside beautiful thing, and I do kind of like the idea that this is her writing another story of what the future could be like for her. You know, she just finished one story, kind of. She has some work to do in polishing it, which I did like that message too. But it was just almost surreal, if you know what I mean. That it could be a dream. Maybe it's not, but it could be a dream, which I thought was really cool.
I agree. And I guess so I mentioned Country Roads.
Did you find out why that song was picked?
So that was going to be my question to you, because it is interesting. Like I like it's such a weird addition to the film, right? Like, so
yeah.
It's one of those things where I wondered if I was misremembering it. Like years and years ago, I think it was like when I was still in high school or something, I was like, am I crazy? Like, was Country Road in that Miyazaki or in that Studio Ghibli film with the, you know, the girl who's like in love with the violinist or whatever? And it wasn't until, like, I think I looked it up on YouTube, like, probably when I was... It's one of those things, like, am I misremembering this? That's such a weird song to have in this random anime. And it turns out, like, no, I wasn't misremembering things. But it is a weird addition. What do you think... Like, why do you think that they chose that song? Because it was very deliberate to the point where there is a Japanese cover of it at the end credits. Like, so it's definitely intended. It's not like some weird dub thing where it's like, oh, it's this Japanese folk song, whatever. People aren't going to get that. Let's just make it Country Road for the American version. Like, that's not a thing. Clearly, like if you were watching this in Japanese, not doing the dub thing like us, it would still be Country Road because it is a Japanese version of Country Road in the end credits. So like, what do you think, T? Why do you think they chose that song?
Well, I do know the original song is, I believe the writer said it was about him going home to a family reunion or a family gathering or something. So maybe in this case, and there's a line where I belong. Maybe in this case it's about the country roads are the journey or the places we wish we could be, because they're in Tokyo. There are no country roads. There are no valleys or anything. I am at a loss. That's kind of like what I'm thinking, because I don't know why they picked this, because it is a little jarring on first watch, and you're like, oh. And it's weird because like in your mind you can almost hear like the banjos.
Yeah.
Because this is so deeply ingrained, which ironically I did just see this song performed by Jelly Roll last week.
Hey! I didn't know he did covers. That's cool.
So I don't know, there's just
that's kind of an interesting thing too.
It does sort of fit the vibe of the movie. The movie is very comfortable and the song is almost very comfortable. I don't know.
It helps it be memorable, and it's funny that you mention, because this song. The other thing, speaking of like younger listeners to the show, if they exist, this song also has kind of a new meaning recently, because a lot of people actually will probably connect it more to like Fallout 76, because it was the song that they used to promote that video game, and then that video game was sort of a flop because it was broken at release. So it's also become kind of a bit of a meme in the sense that like people will reference that as like, oh, like Country Road. Like, I don't know. It's a song that means different things depending on the context and where you heard it, and it's been used in a lot of places. I mentioned how that it was like a song that would be sung at camp a lot.
Yeah.
I think in the context of the film, because that's like a weird thing too. They were writing a graduation song, or Shizuku was writing the lyrics, but the melody they pulled from Country Road, and that's interesting, right? So it's like, okay, maybe it's because they're kids and they're not like skilled enough to write a melody to a song. So it's like, okay, let's pick a melody and then just write lyrics around that. So logistically, just in the context of the story, that's where that makes sense. But again, it was very like meticulously chosen. I think you said this film is like a vibe. The song has a vibe. The song is very comfortable and cozy. And I don't know if there's like a history with Miyazaki in this song, because he's the writer, because the director did not write this movie. But it makes me wonder if he knew the context of the family reunion or something, because there is just something very cozy about this song. And I think that there is kind of a smart, going off of something you have said in the past, because you've talked about how there needs to be more pop music in movies.
Yeah.
One thing I do think this does for the film is it makes it very memorable.
Oh, yeah.
To the point where I, years later, was like, am I crazy? Did I imagine Country Road was in this anime film? So I think it helps it stick out. Like, thankfully, thankfully Totoro had kind of a theme song that was, like, written for the movie. But it's not often that I think of a Ghibli film and think of a song from the film so prominently. Like Princess Mononoke is a great film, but it's got like an orchestral score. I can't really think of like a song that I can hum to myself. And then we talked about this during our Kiki's Delivery Service episode, but that film, Disney wrote an original song for their dubbed version that I like so much that I will probably never get rid of that old Disney DVD, because every version of Kiki's Delivery Service I find has like the original score for the movie. Even if it's dubbed, it's got like the music that came out with the film. And that original song that Disney wrote for the film is so catchy. Like, it's what I think of with Kiki's Delivery Service. And I think Country Road does for this movie what that song did for that version of Kiki's Delivery Service. So I don't know if that was the intended purpose, but I think it kind of goes with what you were saying about pop music, is it's like, it's recontextualizing this Western song in a way that, like, this is often what I think of when I hear that song. More than any other context I've heard that song in, whether it's camp or the Fallout 76 trailer. Like, I always think of this movie when I hear that song because it was the first time I heard this song. And for a lot of Japanese kids, I wonder if that's the case. Or maybe even Japanese people in this entirely, because that's the other interesting thing I did not know before researching this for the podcast, was that this was the highest grossing film in 1995 in Japan.
Oh, nice.
So I wonder if that has something to do with it.
Well, I did go to the Wikipedia page for the movie, and this is interesting. It says that the English dub of this was produced by Walt Disney in 2003, but it wasn't released until 2006. And it says the reason for the delay was because of the rights issues surrounding this song as a major plot point in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, it works. I think it's a good addition to the film. It's very weird. It's one of those things that I think will be jarring to people if they didn't grow up with this movie or haven't seen it before. But I think it's neat. Here's something. Other fun fact about this. So we're going to go into Shizuku's fantastical world of fiction that she came up with for this. So we're finally at the Baron, who comes to life. One fun fact I'll note, there is a detail in the film, if you ever rewatch it, every frame of animation, like anytime it cuts back to the Baron, he's in a new position. And that was to kind of subtly hint that he might be alive.
Yes.
So like anytime it cuts away to him and cuts back to him, he'll be in a different pose. So fun fact, if you're new to this movie, or if you're seeing it for the millionth time, like, that's a fun thing.
Well, really quick, I am curious because this has been a recurring theme in at least the Miyazaki films I've seen. I haven't seen them all, but I've seen a few. And there always seems to be the animal that is the invisible thread guiding the characters. And I wonder what that means to Miyazaki.
Well, he's a lover of nature. So he has a theme park in Japan that has no rides. It's basically like
it's like a nature reserve, right?
Exactly. But it is still like Miyazaki land. So like he really has a reverence for animals and nature and preserving the planet. So I think it comes out of that. Like, okay. I think he sees animals as, like, beings with a soul
they're the wise leaders that we should be following.
Yeah, or like Muda, I thought he was a funny little cat. He's a little bastard, but he also he's so a nice guy.
Sassy.
He's very sassy, and it almost makes you like he's such a likable fat little guy. And that's all animals. Like another, Kiki's Delivery Service. You got Gigi. He's such a he's almost like the words of wisdom to Kiki, like the one who, ironically, the cat is the one who is thinking logically about situations in that movie. And then you have I
was just thinking really quick about Muda, and when they said his name was Muda, I'm like, oh my god, I'm having flashbacks to some ordinary gamers. Yeah, right.
Yep.
But what's interesting is we until the end of the movie, we don't really see what Muda's home is, like his actual home.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking
that's the thing.
Well, they say that he goes around and kind of just wanders and stuff, but it seems like it's at night. It seems like this is where he goes home. And this is just my interpretation.
It's a good point.
And I'm wondering if that has to do with, she has all this fear about pursuing whatever she wants or something. And I kind of wonder if that's supposed to be, because we until then we'd always seen Muda in the middle of the journey or doing what he's doing. I kind of wonder if that's supposed to be just like a note to her. It's like, no matter what, you can always come home. Whatever that means to you. If that means, returning, like, let's say this doesn't pan out for you or something, or you don't enjoy it, that's not the end all be all. You can always have a restart. I don't know, something like that. I feel like that's very intentional, and I feel like there's a purpose for that has to hint at Shizuki's journey, because that was such an intentional scene.
Yeah. Well, and that's like kind of because you mentioned like, oh, maybe that's where Muda goes at night or whatever. Like, because there is that one scene, you sort of assume that he like lives at the antique shop, and then Shinji lays it out like, oh, he doesn't have a home. He goes to different houses all the time and stuff. There is that one house where he leaves, and then the kid's like, "Oh, Moon, where's Moon going? He's leaving again." It does make you wonder, like, does he go to the same house at night? Like, is that his home, and then he just wanders the neighborhood, or is it like a different house? Because I kind of got the vibe that it was also sort of like a Lady and the Tramp sort of thing. Because if in that movie, the Tramp, he is called a different name depending on different people in the neighborhood.
Right.
Like the Italian restaurant, they call him Butch. Oh, Butch, he's got a girlfriend. Let's make him spaghetti. So I was like wondering if that's the same deal. Well, and that's the whole thing too. Like some people call him Moon, some people call him Muda, some people call him other things. So, but no, I think you hit on something with that. But other fun fact, and I think we will get into, because I find it interesting kind of dissecting her fiction. It's another thing that my sister and I laughed about when we first saw this. But first off, the fun fact, this was the first Ghibli film to implement any kind of 3D animation. So there was the scene where her fictional character is like flying with the Baron, and there's, those like floating islands in the sky and whatever.
Yeah.
So those were 3D generated. So this was like kind of the Great Mouse Detective or the Beauty and the Beast for this film, where it's like, oh, they're starting to kind of experiment with 3D CGI. So that's important, but it's very interesting seeing. And that too. Now you're making me want to look up. Is it Shizuku? I think I corrected that improperly or something. You've got your Wikipedia in front of you. Is it Shizuku or Shizuki?
I did have it in front of me. Oh, here we go. It is Shizuku.
Okay, I've been saying it correctly. You keep saying Shizuki.
I know, I'm sorry. I
No,
combined
it's okay.
her name, ironically, with the Suzuki violin books from when I was younger. But it's Shizuku.
Well, part of the reason I was questioning myself was that in my notes, so I have a dot above my Shizuku, and that's because I wrote Shizuki, and then when I glanced back down, I was like, oh, oops, it was Shizuku all along. So with you saying that over and over again, I'm like, wait, did I correct it incorrectly? Anyway, so one bit that my sister and I still quote to this day, and we got it wrong. It was good rewatching this, because now I can correct my sister. We would always like say to each other, the planetoids, they're ascending. So now I will say, my sis, we were wrong. It's not ascending, it's gathering. The planetoids are gathering. We've been quoting it. We've been misquoting it. It's the whole I am your father thing.
Gathering sounds far more ominous. So
right? No, but so like that, my sister and I loved when we finally did get the Baron in this film. We had no idea going into this, because The Cat Returns, for anyone who hasn't seen it, maybe we'll review it in the future, but it's a way more, like, it's a silly film. I would not put it at, like, the top of the Ghibli films, but it's, like, about a girl who saves a cat, and it turns out it's the Prince of Cats, and he wants to marry her, and so she gets transported to a cat land, a cat kingdom, and the Baron saves her from being married to this cat prince, and it's like very silly. She turns into a cat. It's like a whole thing. It's also like not fully feature length. I think it's like an hour and 10 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes or something. But so going from that to this, as I said, when we were watching this, we were just like, where is this character that's supposed to be in this film? And then we find out, oh, he's a statue. And then we see like him in her little fantasy book that she's writing, which is called Whisper of the Heart. We got the title, boys. We got
I love it. When I saw that, I'm like, she says the title of the movie in the movie. Love it.
Right? So every time we returned to the book she was writing, my sister and I would laugh at just like, wow, this makes no sense. It's just nonsense. The planetoids, they're gathering. It's silliness. Like, what is going on in this story? So the Baron can talk, but also, like, they can fly, and there's, like, floating islands. There's, like, a bit where she's trying to find a jewel in this, like, mine, and it's like, oh, you need to find the right one. What do you think her story is about, and what did you pick up from those little vignettes of like seeing her writing, which was arguably the best part of the movie? If you're the sort of person where you want your anime to be flashy, this is probably not going to be your movie, but those little couple of minute scenes where you're seeing the crazy stuff she's writing is the coolest stuff in the movie.
Oh man, those visuals were incredible.
It's so crazy. Like, my sister and I joke about it all the time, but like at the same time, we both thought that scene where she's flying through the like floating balls of rock and islands and stuff in the sky were really cool. And then off in the distance, you could see these like pillars, and it's just this crazy landscape. But yeah, what did you take away from what she was writing? What do you think she was trying to say with her story?
Oh, I think
it's an interesting.
To me, it was very obvious. The story was a lot about her, and I feel like it was about. It was about how really she feels about trying to do something creative. I really sort of got the hints that what is it called? The Baron was a stand-in for Seiji. Because if you know, he's the one that, when I remember, he's always the one that's guiding her around and moving her, telling her what's the next thing to happen. And she's the one in the story, at least though I would say she, I don't know if it's she, but it seems like it's a personification of her. Right. That it's unsure. The big scene that I remember, which I'm like, this is like so like heartbreaking yet great. Is when she's in the cave searching for the true gemstone. I think is what they call it, the true stone. And she picks up what she thinks is it, and it turns out it's not. It's a dead rat. And I was just like, I know exactly how that feels. I know exactly what she's. But that's what I really think it was almost like a personal diary, sort of, that she put characters to ascribe feelings, to ascribe pictures and emotions to what she was feeling. That's kind of what my takeaway of what her story is about, because we don't actually get an ending, so we don't really see what happens at the end. So yeah, so I really do think though that the scenes they showed us were meant to be of important note to what was happening with Shizuku. Thank you, Shizuku. See, now I'm all messed up. With Shizuku Shizuku in the story. But I don't think we were really supposed to know what the story is about, and I think that's kind of the point. But regardless, like you said, the visuals and everything were amazing. But that's kind of like what my 2 cents on were with the story.
Yeah, so with Suzuki, Mazda, Maserati, no. Toyota.
Oh my God.
Mazda, no.
God,
so
that's so bad.
Going off of that, I agree. I think that obviously you never see the full story, and my sister and I used to joke about how it's kind of nonsense and stuff, and I feel like it's obviously intentional. It's also like supposed to be kind of that raw creativity that you only get when you're very young. Did you ever hear about the comic book series and later television series Axe Cop?
I have heard of Axe Cop. I don't know in what contents I've heard of it, but I have heard of it.
So this is kind of it's a collaboration between a father and son. It's not going anymore, partly because it would be ruined. It came out in like the early 2010s. So a comic book artist his son, like he had his son write the comic book, and his son was like 3 years old. So he was just talented, like cartoonist. He could draw anything, and he just gave his son free reign to write whatever crazy stuff he could come up with. And so, like, it's about like a cop who wields an axe, and he rides on a T-Rex with Gatling gun arms, and it's just insanity. But like, that's part of what was so charming about it, was that it was just pure creativity. And it was partly like for comedic value, but he would not like edit out, like the dialogue was bad because it was written by a 3-year-old. You know what I mean? It's like, you die now, stupid bad man, you know, and I never saw it, but I think it was on, maybe it was on Spike. Some television network picked it up, and so there was an Axe Cop animated series, and that's where I first heard of it, and it looked really funny. But I think of her work sort of in that regard. The bit that really got me in the feels this viewing was, and I did not remember this also, so this felt really fresh watching this again. But so she gives her manuscript to Shinji. Let me make sure I'm getting the Shiro. My gosh, Shiro.
Yeah, Shiro Nishi.
Shiro Nishi. Because she really wants like some feedback on it, and she's like, "Oh, I'll wait here until you read it." And he reads it, and I completely forgot about this backstory. So you learn why he has the Baron and why he will never sell it, and it's just this tragic story. He was basically learning his craft in Germany. Like, that's how he learned how to like fix antiques and clocks and things like that. He was studying as like an artisan, basically doing what his grandson is going to do with violins. And he developed a relationship with this German girl there, and they like fell in love, and they both bought, because the Baron is part of a pair, there's like a cat woman that he's supposed to be paired with, and she bought her, and he ended up having to return to Japan, and then the war started.
Yeah.
And they never saw each other again. So the thing that really resonated with me, even more so than the corny ending, was just, and this kind of, because this whole movie, and the reason I have been recommending it to you for years, and why I knew it would get you in the feels, is that at this core of the story, I said it was about that spark of inspiration. It's really hard to motivate yourself to create art because of that fear. Like the dead rat, I don't think that was actually in the story. Maybe it was, but I thought that was like her having a nightmare about a chapter she just wrote where it's like, oh no, the chapter's bad.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are so afraid that what their passion is, what their art form is going to suck, that they don't even pick up a pen or a pencil or a paintbrush or what, they never do it. And even though, as let me get Shiro Nishi puts it, you know, it's an uncut gem that needs refinement. The thing that I thought was so beautiful, he said it, like, I'm never going to see this woman again. I'm probably never going to get that piece back. But you have taken this very emotional thing from my life that would have died with me, and you have given it new meaning and new life. Like, now you have written something that someone will read, and they will take it and they will remember it, and it will live on with them as like a story that they either read or they read to somebody else. Like, you know, maybe she'll get it published, maybe she won't, maybe she'll, you know, edit the story over time. I thought that was really beautiful because that's something I don't think I really appreciated as like a middle schooler. But watching it now, it's like, yeah, I mean, the dude probably he's never going to get the other cat statue. It's possible his grandson might go and, you know, work on finding it or something. Maybe that'd be a cool sequel. Studio Ghibli, The Search for the Barons or the Baroness. Let's do a sequel. Years later, like adult Shizuku, like she's divorced and she goes to Germany to find the missing cat statue. I would pay to see that movie. But going back to what I was saying, it was never going to happen. He was like, it's this thing that he has in his shop. He's never going to sell it because it's like something that means so much to him. But just the fact that like her little project actually like moved him. Like that's the thing too. Like if I remember correctly, he was like almost teary-eyed, like remembering this woman that he hasn't seen in like decades. That I feel like is the real soul of the movie, more so than the corny romance stuff. Because that's the thing too. Like as you said, we don't know if the ending's a dream, and even if it isn't a dream, the likelihood of this pair actually getting married or even having a relationship past high school is like nil. Like it's not going to happen. It's possible, but very unlikely. So like to me, I feel like,
to quote one of my mentors, Whiskey, it's about living for the hope of it all.
Exactly. But unlike her potential relationship with Shinji Amasawa, her work is what will live on, whether anyone reads it or not. And I think that is the spirit of this movie. Like it's encouraging artists to do it for the sake of doing it, because you never know who it's going to touch. And regardless of whatever happens in her personal life, she did it. She set her goal. She proved to herself that she could meet her goals. And now she has something to show for it.
Yeah.
You know, even though she was missing class and all this stuff, I could not write. I forget. I think she said it's like 170 pages or something. So not super long, but that's certainly longer than anything I wrote when I was in 8th grade.
Oh, yeah. She had a whole book there. It was amazing.
Yeah. So I think it's a very inspiring film.
I really liked it. I cried at some points. It made me feel things.
It sounds like you're about to cry now. Are you going to cry?
I am not going to cry right now. This is still the sinus infection, so.
Oh, no.
But no, it's definitely is full of the feels.
I also like the end credits. I actually didn't notice this. I think I was like kind of trying to read the credits, and also like I was listening to Country Road. I think I might have also just like started cleaning up my apartment and stuff. But like somehow I didn't notice this, but something that was listed on IMDb that I'm sure many people do notice, especially if they rewatch this over and over again. Yuko and Sujimura, the two that started the whole love triangle thing, you know, her friend and the boy that she likes, they end up like meeting up during the end credits, and you know it's implied by how they seem interacting that they start dating.
Okay, so, I need to go back and watch the end credits, because like I watched it on Max, and you know Max does that thing where it's like, okay, the credits started and it zooms out and it's like, anything else you want to watch? So I thought it was over.
I hate when they do that. Thankfully that didn't. I'm sure it did happen to me. I'd probably just X'd it out. I watched this on Amazon, which thankfully, you know, it's so funny. I still had the subtitles on from when I was watching Overboard, because last episode I was talking about how like for some reason the Spanish didn't come up with subtitles, so I just had to watch the whole movie in subtitles because it was like one or none or whatever. So I didn't need subtitles for this. But it didn't kick me out, so I didn't notice that like people were walking around. I just didn't pay attention to it. But that is a thing, and I love that too. I love it when movies give you an excuse to watch the credits, because it keeps going until the very end of the movie too, which is cool. Like it doesn't like just do it until like the mid credits. It's like you could keep watching. You know, people watch essentially for the rest of the movie. And yeah, I feel like we've kind of touched on pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. There's also kind of the home life stuff with her, where her sister moves out. There is sort of this growing up.
I kind of hated the sister. I'm like, girl, stay in your lane. Like, you are not the same person.
I understand her sister. I feel like she was being a little hard on a 14-year-old girl, but I do get what she means, because it is kind of like, dude, like your family does not have time to do all this stuff. Like you need to remember your chores a little bit. But I know
the girl
like,
that's moving out. Okay.
Right? Well, I mean, after she moves out, it's like now you really do need to do your chores because your sister isn't going to cover your butt.
I love how they tell us that she's going to move out. They don't say when it's happening. I mean, I guess she does, but like in the story, you don't know what day it is. But then all of a sudden, there's just that one scene where the bed's shoved over, and I'm just like, okay, I guess she's gone.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other. I touched on this earlier when I was talking about her home life situation, but that is like a really wild. It's you and I, we're adults, we've lived on our own for a while, but it is really crazy to think of like, especially if you have like an adult sister as a kid, like if she really didn't have any privacy. Like the whole fantasy element of the movie really is just like there's sort of this relatable escapism to it. You know, even her just finding the antique shop, like it's in this corner of town that nobody knows about except her, and she like just stumbled upon it on accident. That like the fact that she is on her way to deliver lunch to her father is like, you know, it's part of her mundane life. She doesn't go anywhere. She goes to school and she goes to the library where her dad works, and she goes home, and that's it. And I felt like that was such an extension of it too, having an adult sister like living in the same room as you. That was something I remember as a kid kind of thinking about, is just like, oh wow, this whole family lives in this like 2-bedroom apartment, you know, which now is not that crazy to think about. You know, you see that all the time, especially if you live in a city. But you know, like I grew up in a house, so I was just like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Like she's, you know, they have no space for anything. They had just piles of books everywhere and like all this. It felt really repressive, but not again, like I compare it to Cinderella, but she's not being abused. Her family loves her. They're very nice. Like the meanest thing is her sister, and her sister is just kind of a hard ass more than anything.
Her sister needs to mind her own business.
Her sister needs to get a boyfriend
or girlfriend or whatever she wants, but like she needs to have a personality besides telling her sister how to live.
Well, was there anything else you felt like you needed to touch on? Was there anything I have missed that really stuck out to you?
I do think that I want to say this is something that occurred to me while we were talking. I think the second reason why it was so important for her to finish writing in the 2-month period or whatever, is because, and I'm like, I don't know if this is her thing, but she doesn't finish things, I think. Because I don't remember her saying that she finished her book goal over the summer. Because the last thing I remember her saying is, oh, there's 7 more to go. And then, you know, a few scenes later, we're back at school. So
that's a good point.
And I'm like, did she finish or not? So I do think that it wasn't just, you know, the creative thing. It's almost like she had to prove to herself that she could do something. So that's all I want to say. Meet a goal. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, and that too, like that's a good point too, because she kind of forgets about once she sets that goal of like, I'm giving myself 2 months to write a book. I think that's also like she abandoned the first goal, which this is like something I've kind of talked about too. Like I'm a big advocate for art in general. And I do think that something happens to you like when all you do is consume art. I do think that it's like good to watch movies and look at paintings and read books and things like that, but there is an effort you have to put in to like make something. And this is why it infuriates me, like the AI people going full circle and going back into AI, which Miyazaki hates. Like that also kind of ties into that too. Like she was reading a lot of books, which is good. There's nothing wrong with reading books, but she did something better with her time. She put something out into the world. And as I said, with like what it turned out to be, it was something very beautiful that was very moving.
Yeah.
And if she had stuck to her original goal, she would have read 20 books, but what would she have gotten out of it besides reading 20 books?
Right.
You know, would she have anything to show for it besides her name in the same, you know, card in the inside of the book next to Shiji Adamoto? Yeah. Seiji Amisawa?
Yeah.
I don't think so. But yeah, with that being said, what would you rate the movie, T?
I would give it 3 out of 4 pitchers of sweet tea. I think it's a very well crafted movie. It's very moving. I feel like it touches on deep emotions and fears that even we still have inside of us as adults. And for that reason, and for the fact of how well it was crafted and the way it looks and the vibe it puts out, it's a timeless film.
I completely agree. And for anyone listening, T and I have this funny dynamic where I constantly nag him to see things for years at a time. And this is one of those movies, as I mentioned. So it is very, very gratifying that you finally watched this movie and
was moved by it. Not just saw it.
I knew you were going to like it, and it was very funny rewatching it myself. I sent you a message. I was like, it's like this movie was written by you.
What? Oh my God.
Well, because T is a writer himself, and he has expressed a lot of these anxieties about his work that I was literally hearing coming out of the main character's mouth. So I was just like, my God, this is like probably going to be your new favorite anime film.
This is going to be my new favorite vibe film too. I'm just going to have it on just to like, set the tone. It's so nice.
Yeah. I really liked it. It was very fun revisiting this after I don't know how many years. Like I always remember the first viewing of this with my sister just because of the story and because we had to seek it out. Something you don't really see that you do anymore these days. So that will always be like what I think about with this film. The same way anytime I see or hear Country Roads, I will think of this film. But revisiting it was just very refreshing. I liked this far more than I remember liking it as a kid. And I think coming back with fresh eyes and a fresh mind and a little bit more years under my belt, a lot of things that I wrote off as like bad or cliche writing, I see the point in it now. And I seriously am considering adding this to my movie collection because we have all of the Miyazaki films that we grew up with, but we didn't really count this one because it was just sort of an oddity we investigated and enjoyed when we watched. But I was seriously considering picking up the Blu-ray, and I very well might. So I'm actually even rating this higher than T. I'm giving it 3.5 out of 4 because it is a vibe, and I think it is aged perfectly. I think it's almost better when you're an adult.
Yeah.
Because there's sort of this like lost youth you feel watching this. I wish the worst thing I had to worry about was like the girl I have a crush on at school. So I thoroughly enjoyed this. But what do you guys think? Do you think we missed anything? Do you have a Ghibli film that we haven't talked about that you want us to talk about? Or an anime film that we've overlooked? Let us know in the comments if you're listening to this on YouTube Music, if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify or whatever. We've been doing this for a while.
Let us know if whiskey should pick up the Jaws whiskey bottle. Let us know.
Yes. Let me know. We can I'll down it in one. No, I won't. I'll die.
I don't think so. But just alternate with water.
Check out our backlog. We've been doing this a lot longer if this is your first episode. Also check us out on Letterboxd. I've been bad. I've had some people add me. And the last episode hasn't even come out, so people have noticed me on there without... some of it is friends, so I'll acknowledge that, but I have not logged in and done anything yet, which I should, because I have seen Sinners and Minecraft, so I need to leave my reviews of those. That'll be kind of a thing you can look forward to on Letterboxd. Obviously, on the show, I won't talk about movies until our finale, but if you care, you can see what I have to say as soon as I log on to Letterboxd. But until next time, I've been Whiskey.
I've been Sweet Tea.
Keep in Aquino.
And suck it, Scorsese.
Sayonara, guys, until next time when we talk about yet another anime film.
Bye, y'all. Reels on the Rocks is a production of La Prince Laboratories. It is edited and produced by Alejandro Castillo and programmed by Jamie King. Original music is provided by Pat Mars, and original artwork by Asa Sparza.